Hey, tonight we're going somewhere cold, wet, and miserable. Not just weather-wise, but in every way you can imagine. If you enjoy these slow, immersive dives into forgotten corners of human history, please take a second to like the video and subscribe. And while you're here, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what the weather is like. Maybe you're lucky enough to not be surrounded by ankle-deep mud and rotting wheat. Okay, dim the lights, let the fan hum, and let's travel back to the year 1315. The first thing you notice isn't the hunger. Not yet. That will come soon enough. The first thing is the rain. Cold, steady, endless. It drums on the thatched roof of your village hut like a curse. It hasn't stopped for days. No, weeks. The roads are now rivers. The fields are soaked to the bone. And deep in your stomach, a small, gnawing fear has begun to form. You wake up in a damp straw bed, the wool blanket barely shielding you from the creeping chill. The hearth has gone out again. It's too wet to burn anything properly, and firewood is already a luxury. Your breath clouds in the air as you sit up, shivering. You pull on yesterday's clothes, rough, scratchy, and still a little wet from yesterday's efforts in the flooded barley fields. You're exhausted. So is everyone else. This is a year like no other. It's supposed to be early summer, June, maybe. Normally, this would be a time of hope, a time of plowing, planting, maybe even a little singing if spirits are high, but the fields have turned into swamps. The seeds you threw into the soil weeks ago haven't sprouted. Many were washed away, and the others drowned. Outside, the village is silent. No birds singing, no tools clinking, no cheerful calls between neighbors, just the hiss of constant rain and the squelch of mud underfoot. You pass the old church on the way to the communal storehouse, not to pray, but to beg. Maybe there's something left. Maybe today the reeve will give your family an extra measure of rye or a handful of beans. But the answer is always the same. There's nothing left. You nod quietly and step back from the door, trying not to look desperate, but everyone knows, everyone's the same now. Faces thinner, eyes hollow, shoulders hunched from cold and hunger. The reeve isn't cruel. There's simply nothing left to give. The granaries were emptied weeks ago. What little was stored from the last harvest is gone, eaten or rotted. You trudge back home through the muck, passing the blacksmith's place, usually loud and bright with hammer and flame. It's cold now. The forge has gone cold. The blacksmith sold his last bit of iron for food. His hammer lies rusting in a puddle. You stop by the village well, dipping your bucket in with slow, aching arms. The rain has flooded the water table, but the water tastes off like mud and rot. You drink anyway. What else can you do? Back at your hut, your family is still in bed, if you can call it that. Straw on the floor, maybe a board if you're lucky. Your youngest brother hasn't spoken in 2 days. Your mother looks older than ever. She tries to smile when she sees you, but her cheeks are hollow and her lips cracked from the cold. Your father sits near the hearth, poking at damp ashes, hoping something will catch. There's no breakfast. There hasn't been for a while. A crust of bread from 3 days ago sits on the table, carefully guarded like treasure. You break it into 4 equal parts. Even though none of them are enough, you chew slowly, not to savor it. There's no flavor left. But to make the moment last, you drink water and wait for the stomach pains to ease. The day drags on. You walk the edge of the village with others, heads down, eyes scanning for roots, berries, weeds, anything. Some people are eating dock leaves, boiling nettles, even chewing bark. Anything to fill the void, anything to give their children something. No one speaks much anymore. What's there to say? The rain has made everything difficult, not just farming, but drying clothes, burning fires, walking anywhere without sinking. But it's the food that breaks people. The slow realization that this isn't a bad season, it's something worse. You hear whispers about animals dying, not just from hunger, but disease, hooves rotting from the mud, sheep drowning in flooded pens. You had a pig once. It's gone now, traded for grain that lasted a week. Even the rats seem fewer. That night, as the wind rises and the rain taps faster on the roof, you huddle close with your family. You listen to your sister's stomach growl. She doesn't cry anymore. None of you do. The tears are gone. Used up, like everything else. You lie awake long into the night, stomach empty, heart pounding, wondering how many more days like this can exist, wondering what happens next. By the second week of December, the mud outside your hut is no longer just a nuisance. It's become a trap. Every step is a gamble. You've seen a cart lose a wheel in the mire, the axle snapping like dry kindling. The wheelwright had nothing to replace it with. The broken cart still sits there, half sunk in the muck, a monument to a world grinding slowly to a halt. The animals that once roamed the village edge, deer, rabbits, even the crows, have grown scarcer. Not because they're gone, because they've been eaten. Every child in your village can now tell you how to gut a bird, pluck it, cook it over weak coals. Even if it's not fully cooked, you eat it. You can't afford to be picky. Not anymore. There are stories from other villages. Worse ones, entire households vanishing overnight. Graves dug shallow and quick. In some places, no graves at all. Just bundles of rags left at the edge of the woods. You don't know if they're true. You don't want to know. Church bells ring more often now. Not for weddings, for funerals. Though sometimes the bells ring for no one. Just a hollow sound to remind the world that someone is gone, that someone was here. A whisper into the rain. You try to work where you can. The manor lord still demands labor, though his stores are empty, and his hall no warmer than yours. The lord's reeve offers thin soup in exchange for hauling logs, fixing fences, or digging drainage ditches that fill again within hours. You do the work. You can't afford not to. Some of your neighbors have begun eating things you wouldn't have imagined just a few months ago. Boiled leather, bark scraped from trees, mice caught in traps and cooked whole. You tell yourself you won't go that far, but you know you will. Everyone will. You begin to notice people changing. Eyes dull, faces gaunt, tempers short. Laughter, which once echoed across the fields during planting and harvest, is gone now. Even the children don't play. They sit, quiet and still, as if trying not to use up what little energy they have left. At night, the wind is crueler. It whistles through cracks in the wood, carries away the warmth of your breath before you even feel it. Your bones ache. Hunger makes sleep difficult. Even dreams become cruel. Flashes of roasted meat, warm bread, a full belly, only to wake with your stomach tighter than before. Your mother coughs in the dark, a wet sound. Your father doesn't comment. He just sits by the hearth, staring into the dying fire. No one speaks of what happens if one of you gets sick. There's nothing to be done. No herbs, no healer. Just prayer and the rain, steady as ever, drumming the rhythm of despair on the roof. The famine isn't a monster that comes all at once. It doesn't roar. It seeps in, slowly, quietly, day by day, until you realize it's inside everything. Your home, your mind, your very bones. And it's not done yet. By January, the silence becomes a thing of its own. It hangs over the village like a heavy cloth, muffling sound, making everything feel distant. Even the dogs have stopped barking. Those that haven't disappeared. That is, you know what happened to them. Everyone does. No one says it. The snow finally comes, but it's not the kind you imagined as a child. Playful, light, a reason to laugh and run. This snow is hard, wind-driven, crusted with ice. It turns the muddy village paths into glassy death traps. It covers the last of the dead crops, concealing the failure beneath a deceiving blanket of white. You almost feel insulted by it. How dare the sky pretend things are clean? Your hut groans under the weight of snow and damp. Every creak in the roof makes you flinch. There's no wood left for repairs. The thatch above your head leaks steadily now, drops of freezing water falling like clockwork into a pan you've placed by your sleeping mat. It's a rhythm you know too well. You go to bed hungry and wake up hungrier. Sleep is no longer a relief, but a torment, filled with dreams of warmth and food. You wake in the dark with your mouth dry and your belly aching as though it's trying to eat itself. Sometimes you cry, but even the tears come slow, your body saving every drop. And still, the church bells toll. You hear whispers. Some say this is the wrath of God. Others mutter darker things, rumors of witches, curses, or poisoned wells. A neighbor accused an old woman of sorcery last week. Her hut was burned down. No one stopped it. No one spoke of it afterward. The cold makes people cruel. Even time feels different now. Days blend together. The sun rarely shines. Each morning is just another version of the last. Gray, wet, heavy. You mark the days by how much worse things get, how many more people disappear, how many more doors stay shut. The manor's granary is locked. Rumors swirl that there's food hidden there, that the Lord's steward keeps a private stockpile. You hear talk of breaking in, but no one acts. Not yet. Fear still outweighs desperation, but only just. The children are the first to go quiet, then the elderly. There are fewer cries at night now, fewer footsteps in the lanes. The village grows thinner in every way, and you, still breathing, still waking each cursed day, wonder how long your luck will last. The famine isn't an event, it's a season of the soul, a slow erasure of everything human. Joy, trust, warmth, hope, and it sets not over, not even close. By late winter, hunger becomes something else entirely. It's no longer a sharp pain or a gnawing emptiness. It becomes a presence, a second soul inside you, heavy and bitter, whispering cruel suggestions when your guard is down. You look at your hands and think about what they used to do. Sow seeds, cradle children, carry baskets of rye and barley. Now they tremble with weakness, fingers swollen from cold and cracked open from hard labor in frozen soil. The skin is tight, pale. You barely recognize them. You barely recognize yourself. Your neighbor's barn collapsed in the night under the snow. The ox was trapped beneath it. People came running, not to help, not anymore, but to see if the animal could be salvaged. Not saved, salvaged. That's what this winter has done. It's stripped the last layers of civility from your village. People hover like scavengers, not out of malice, but because it's that or die, and die they do. Some slip quietly in the night, breath freezing in their throats. Others fade in plain sight, growing thinner and slower, their eyes glassy, like they're watching something far away. You stop asking who's missing. You already know. Everyone is. The priest speaks less of mercy and more of judgment. The sermons grow darker, more warnings, less comfort. He tells you that this is a test, that those who endure will be rewarded. You wonder if he believes it himself. He doesn't look you in the eye anymore. You begin to ration things that once seemed absurd to count. Candle stubs, floor sweepings, bits of string. Your family shares a single crust of bread and treats it like a feast. Every crumb is divided. Every bite is chewed slowly, reverently, like a prayer. The snow melts a little, then refreezes, forming jagged crystals across the thatch. You wake one morning to find frost on the inside of your walls, the hearth long since cold, no wood left to burn. You wrap yourself in layers of damp wool, breathing mist into the air, pretending it's warmth. And still, you go on. Not because of hope, that's long gone. You go on out of instinct, because the body, even in ruin, clings to life like a dog with a bone. You breathe, you swallow, you move. That is your rebellion. That is your prayer. The famine doesn't shout, it whispers. Slowly. Every hour, it takes something from you. A memory, a friend, a little more of your strength, but it never takes everything all at once. That would be mercy. And mercy is in short supply. The roads are quieter now. What used to be lively trade routes and muddy paths of gossip are little more than desolate tracks. Carts don't roll by often anymore. There's nothing to trade, and few who still have anything to spare. You pass a tangle of abandoned shoes near the edge of the village, children's shoes. One is split open at the toe, laces rotted away. You pause, not because it's strange, but because you're trying to remember who they belong to. You can't. Their family moved away, or starved, or simply disappeared between one day and the next. Some have taken to the forest, desperate men, mostly, hunting, foraging, or banditry. If you're honest, you heard about a family waylaid while trying to reach a neighboring town. They were robbed of their bread, their blankets, and even their shoes. No one talks about it openly, but everyone knows who did it, and no one says a word. You might need that man's help next week. At home, the hearth is dead. No fuel, no embers. You tried burning dung, but even that's hard to come by now. You used to complain about the smell. Now you'd give anything for that smell. It meant heat. It meant something living. Your youngest asked for meat last night. The word hit like a slap. You laughed. But it wasn't real laughter. It came out twisted, hollow. She didn't understand, of course. Meat was a story, a word from another world, like summer, or health, or abundance. But the memory of it lingered on her tongue, and now it lingers on yours. Your village once held festivals. There was music, ale, dancing in the commons. You think about it now like you'd think about a dream. Not quite believable, not quite real. You remember lanterns swinging in the breeze, and the smell of roasting barley. A different world, a different you. People talk less these days. Words are a kind of energy you can't afford to waste. Conversation now is brief, and mostly practical. Who still has grain? Who is sick? Who was buried last night? You don't say good morning anymore. You say, still with us? And that's enough. One night, you go outside and look at the sky. It's overcast. As always, the clouds hang like wet wool above your village, but you remember stars, distant, glimmering things, signs of something bigger. You remember staring at them as a child, thinking they were promises. Now they set are gone. And in their absence, the world feels smaller, closer, hungrier. But you go back inside, you lie down next to your family, and you sleep. Not because you're at peace, but because it's the only place hunger can't follow for a few short hours, until morning returns, and the famine with it. Morning returns without light. The clouds still hang low, pressing down on your thatched roof, like a weight you can feel in your bones. There is no sunrise, only a slow shift from black to a lighter shade of gray, the kind of gray that makes you forget there was ever such a thing as color. Your breath fogs in the air as you sit up. Everyone else is still asleep, or at least pretending to be. It's quieter that way. Hunger doesn't feel as cruel if you don't speak its name. You reach for the wooden bowl in the corner, where you left a few spoonfuls of mashed barley from last night. It's frozen solid. You chip off a piece with your nail and suck on it slowly, trying to convince yourself it tastes like anything at all. It doesn't. It tastes like wood and cold and the edge of despair. You used to feed your children first. That's what good parents do. But now you just divide what little there is in silence. No one protests. Hunger teaches obedience better than any lord ever could. Someone coughs. A dry, rasping sound. You've heard it before. Last winter, when your neighbor's boy wasted away in bed. It starts like this. Then the fevers. Then the silence. You look over. It's your eldest. Their eyes are closed. Their face hollow. You hope it's just the cold. You tell yourself, it's just a cold. The church bell doesn't ring anymore. The priest fell ill weeks ago. No one dared bury him. The chapel still stands. Door hanging open. Wind blowing through the nave like a ghost. Sometimes children throw rocks at it, not out of disrespect, just to see if anything will react. Nothing does. You used to be a carpenter. You had strong hands, good tools. People respected your craft. You made tables, cribs, chests, once even a door for the manor house. Now your tools are gone, traded for grain, or stolen in the night. And your hands, they're cracked, raw, the fingers swollen from cold and malnutrition. You couldn't carve a spoon now if your life depended on it. And maybe it does. The Lord's steward came by last week, demanded the usual tithe, a portion of your grain. Even though he could see there was none, he took the clay pot from your hearth instead, said it was fair. You didn't argue. Arguing costs energy, and your voice was too hoarse to carry anyway. The only thing you have in abundance is time. Long hours filled with the slow passing of suffering. You used to mark days by the rising of the sun, the ringing of bells, the sound of your children playing. Now it's just the endless rhythm of survival, waking, waiting, withering. You step outside, boots, crunching into frost and frozen mud. Though you barely feel the cold anymore, your body, like your spirit, has adapted in the worst way, by going numb. The fields stretch before you like a graveyard. Black soil, long since stripped of its strength, clings to the brittle stalks of last year's failure. The autumn rains came too soon. The summer sun never did. And now this, a third winter that refuses to end, clinging to the land like a curse no priest can lift. You kneel by the edge of your plot and dig your fingers into the ground, not to plant. You have nothing left to sow, but out of habit. The earth is hard, unyielding. Like it, you have nothing to give. Down the path, you hear voices, thin, reedy, not quite angry, but not friendly either. Someone found a dead animal on the roadside. A dog, maybe. They argue over whether it's too far gone to eat. You don't go near. You know how that ends. You've seen it before. Who gets the meat? Who gets the bones? Who doesn't walk away at all? Your thoughts drift to the monastery. They were once generous with their bread and barley stew. Now the brothers are gaunt, their hands trembling, as they serve fewer and fewer bowls each week. Last you heard, they were boiling parchment scraps from old books just to make broth. Sacred words turned to soup. You remember a sermon from long ago. Something about God testing his children. You wonder if this is a test, or if someone simply forgot you. In the distance, the manor house glows faintly with firelight, warmth, food, shelter, all of it just beyond reach. The Lord still feasts. He always does. The famine never reaches his table. It reaches yours. It eats from your bowl, sleeps in your bed, and whispers in your ear that tomorrow will be worse. By midday, the clouds have darkened again. A slow, relentless drizzle begins to fall. Not enough to soak, but just enough to chill. You pull your threadbare cloak tighter. Though it does little good, you've sewn it so many times it's more patch than cloth now. You shuffle toward the woods, careful to avoid the usual patrol paths. Technically, it's poaching. Technically, you could hang for it, but hunger doesn't care for legal definitions. You're not looking for deer. You're not that hopeful. A few mushrooms, maybe. Bark, roots, anything that doesn't fight back. You remember when bread was made with flour. Now it's bark, mashed, and ground into a bitter paste, or acorns soaked until the tannins are bearable. The bread you eat now breaks teeth more than it fills bellies. Still, it's better than nothing, and better than nothing is the best anything gets these days. You pause. Listen. A branch snaps somewhere nearby. Not an animal. Someone else is out here, looking for the same things. You both know there's not enough. You turn slowly, trying not to look threatening. You nod once. They nod back, then disappear into the trees. No words are exchanged. They would cost too much. You return home just before dusk. Your hands are scratched. Your knees ache from crouching, scraping at the frozen ground for moss and tubers barely thicker than twine. Today's harvest amounts to a small cloth bundle, roots, some bitter berries, a handful of bark shavings. No one will be full tonight. That isn't the goal anymore. The goal is simply to not die before morning. Inside, the air is stale, damp, and filled with a sharp, acrid smoke from the peat you managed to trade last week. The fire coughs, rather than burns, but it's something. Your family stirs from their places, lying, curled together like sleeping dogs for warmth. Their eyes flick to your hands. You say nothing. Neither do they. You don't need to. You add the food to the pot. A thin, metallic bowl filled with yesterday's water and the ghost of something once edible. The root shavings join the mix. You stir slowly, as if effort could thicken the brew. Your child, your youngest, is trying to sleep or trying not to cry. It's hard to tell anymore. They've grown so quiet these days. No tantrums, no running, no play, only the long silences that stretch on too large for someone so small to carry. You glance at your spouse, who is folding a cloth to cover a wound, a sore that won't heal. Their fingers tremble with cold, or fever, or both. You say nothing. You've run out of comforting lies. Once, you might have prayed before eating. Now the silence itself is the prayer. The first spoonful of broth is passed around. A ritual. Each person takes one sip before handing it on. No one asks for more. To do so would be unkind. The body screams for it, but the soul stays silent. You used to think the worst part of starvation would be the pain, but it's not. The worst part is the shrinking, not just of bodies, but of everything. Dreams, plans, laughter. Even time feels smaller now. Days blur into each other like wet ink on paper. You look around the room and realize how hollow everything has become. The tools that once made food, mended clothes, or carved wood now lie untouched. No one bakes. No one sings. No one sharpens the scythe or weaves baskets anymore. What's the point? The wind howls outside, cruel and uncaring. Somewhere in the village, a baby wails. Somewhere else, the sound of shovels. You don't ask. You already know. You lie down with the others, bones pressed against the cold earth through straw. Your breath clouds in the air. You pull your cloak tighter, as if cloth could hold back hunger. It can set. You close your eyes, but sleep doesn't come easily anymore. You listen to your heart beating in your ears, and wonder if one day soon it might not. The night stretches on like a punishment. You wake often, not from noise, there's so little of that now, but from the gnawing ache inside your belly. Hunger doesn't sleep. It curls around your ribs like a cold serpent, tightening with each hour. At some point, your neighbor stirs outside. You hear their door creak open, their steps crunch over frost-covered earth. A cough, then nothing. Come morning, you find out they passed in their sleep. The cough had turned to fever days ago. No one was surprised. no one wept. Not because they didn't care, but because they couldn't spare the strength. Grief has become a quiet thing. A nod, a glance, a tightening of the lips. By midday, a few villagers carry the body out toward the edge of the forest. There's no ceremony, just a shallow grave dug in cold soil. The priest doesn't come. He's ill himself. Or maybe already dead. You've lost track. You don't remember the last full mass. Perhaps last autumn, perhaps longer. The ground resists the shovel. The earth is stiff, frozen in parts. It takes hours to dig a pit shallow enough to hold the body. One man collapses. The others keep digging. Back in the village, you try to barter. You offer your last bit of spun wool, saved through winter, in hopes of trading it for grain. But there is no grain. There are only others like you, desperate and empty-handed. A man offers a slice of dried meat in exchange for your boots. You hesitate. The boots are thin, worn, but still keep your feet from the mud. You trade them anyway. That night, your feet bleed, but your child eats a piece of meat, chews slowly, smiles for the first time in days. It feels like a miracle, and you would trade your own fingers for another smile like that. The spring should be coming, but the rains haven't stopped. The roads are rivers. The fields are lakes. No seed will take in that. No ox can pull a plow through it. You hear whispers now of people turning to darker solutions, of theft, of grave robbing, of meat that doesn't come from animals. You don't want to believe it, but the rumors cling to the air like smoke. Even the church bell is silent these days, rusted, unrung. Still, you wake each day. Still, you walk to the edge of the forest. Still, you search the damp earth for anything with calories, anything that might keep the fire inside your family lit for another night, because that sets what survival is now. Not a plan, not a triumph, just a slow, steady refusal to lie down and die. Your joints ache more than usual today. At first, you think it's just the cold, but it's deeper than that. A hollowness in the bones, the kind that doesn't go away when the fire's lit. You're not old, not really. But starvation ages everyone. Your reflection in the basin tells a different story. Sunken eyes, cracked lips, a line forming between your brows that never used to be there. Even the children are quiet now. The village used to ring with laughter, shouts and clatter from wooden toys, games played in the dirt. Now, they sit like little ghosts on doorsteps, too tired to run, too hungry to fight. One of the neighbor's boys has taken to sleeping all day, unmoving. They say he's just resting, but deep down, you know he's fading. Your own child is thinner than ever. You wrap them in everything you have. Old cloaks, patched cloth, even bits of sack. Their eyes follow you when you move about the house. They're waiting for you to fix things. You wish you could. At night, there's scratching outside, not rats. Those you've grown used to. This is something bigger. A figure, maybe. You don't open the door. Not anymore. Not after what happened last week. A family was found gone. All of them. No sign of struggle. No note. The fire had gone out. And the house was cold. But everything was left behind. Dishes, bedding, a half-knitted shawl. Just vanished. Some say they walked into the woods. That hunger finally took their minds. Others think they were taken. You don't speak of it aloud. To name fear gives it shape. And right now, you can't afford anything else with shape, not even dread. Come morning, you try the barley store again. The miller's son is guarding it now. He doesn't recognize you at first. His cheeks are hollow, but his grip on the staff is firm. He shakes his head before you even speak. There's set's nothing left, he says. You know he's lying. You can smell it. The sweet rot of flour just turning, barely edible, but still food. He's keeping it for his own. You don't blame him. You would too. A woman you once knew, the one who sang at midsummer, who wore that flower crown and laughed until her sides ached, is now trading her body for soup. No shame in it. Not anymore. Just another kind of labor, another price for staying alive. You walk away. Not because you're proud, just because you have nothing left to trade. That night, you boil bark again. You scrape lichen from the stones near the forest. It tastes bitter, makes your stomach twist, but it fills the void for a moment. You fall asleep, dreaming of bread. Not feasts, not roast meats, just a single, thick slice of warm bread. With butter. That seps all. Just bread. You wake up coughing. The smoke from last night's fire never truly left. It hangs low in the air, mixing with the dampness and turning your chest into a forge. Someone is already moving outside. Boots in the mud, a slow, shuffling pace. It might be the priest making his rounds again, or the beggar from the southern hamlet who never speaks. You listen. The footsteps pass. The church bell hasn't rung in days, maybe weeks. There's no one left strong enough to pull the rope, or maybe they simply stopped trying to summon a congregation that can barely stand. You stir the ashes, nothing but cold gray. Even the coals have died. You scrape the last of the dried moss from the hearth and coax it into a flame with some dry grass and a single twist of cloth. You hesitate. That cloth could patch a hole, but fire means heat. Heat means life. You let it burn. There's a rabbit snare out by the stone fence. You set it days ago, haven't dared check it. Not because of the disappointment. You've grown used to that. But because you're not sure you can bear the weight of hope anymore. That fragile flicker that something might have gone right. You pull your cloak around your shoulders and step into the cold. The world is gray. Even the birds are gone. The fields that once stretched green and gold are now a scabbed-over patchwork of mud, frost, and stunted growth. The few remaining stalks of wheat have frozen in place, heads bowed like mourners. You reach the snare. There is movement. Your breath catches, but it sips. Not a rabbit. It's a dog. Skinny, ribs sharp as scythes, eyes wide with hunger, one leg caught in the snare. Twisted. It growls, low and broken. You kneel. The thought crosses your mind before you even mean to think it. Meat. Fresh. Warm. You shake it off. You speak to it gently. It doesn't trust you, but it's too weak to fight. You cut the snare loose and carry it back. It's lighter than a sack of straw. Your child asks if it's dinner. No, you say. It's Sep's company. The dog doesn't run. It curls by the hearth and sleeps. And in that moment, the house feels less empty. You break your last crust of bread into thirds. One for you, one for your child, one for the dog. The hunger remains, but the silence is softer now. Tomorrow, you still go back to the woods. You still try again, because trying is the only thing left to do. The days begin to blur. You mark them now, not by the sun or the turning of the seasons, but by the sound of crying, when it begins and when it stops. Some days, the crying never stops. The child from the next hovel over, the one with hair the color of chestnuts, hasn't been outside in 3 days. You hear her cough sometimes, sharp, like the crack of a whip. Her mother hasn't come for water either. That silence is loud. Too loud. You avoid looking toward their door. You check the stream today. The ice on top is thin but bitter. You take the smallest tin cup you have and begin to gather it slowly, piece by piece, melting what little you can over the fire. You ration every drop like gold, and it tastes of mud and rot. A winter like this doesn't just chill the bones, it rots the very spirit. You catch yourself staring at the wall for hours, not thinking, not feeling, just waiting. Waiting for what? You're not sure anymore. Once, a man from the northern village came with news. The king had ordered relief. Grain shipments, wagons full of barley, salted meat, dried apples. They were coming. The village gathered, trembling, hopeful, starving, filthy but suddenly radiant with that long-dead emotion hope. No wagons ever came. Now when someone claims help is coming, people don't even look up. The churchyard is full. No more room to bury the dead with dignity. Graves are now shallow, rushed, sometimes unmarked. There's no wood for coffins, no priest to say the rites. But people still whisper prayers, out of habit more than faith. And on some bitter nights, they scream them. The dog whines in its sleep. Its ribs are still visible, but it doesn't try to bite now. You think it's bonded with your child. They sleep curled together, like siblings, breathing warmth into one another. You worry what will happen if the dog dies. You worry what will happen if it doesn't set. Today, someone trades you a piece of dried leather. You don't ask what it is. It's chewy, hard, and takes hours to soften in boiling water. Your jaw aches. Your belly does not. But at least there's something in it. And still, you endure. Not because you expect it to get better, but because there sets no other option. You survive because that's the only thing left to do. The hunger sharpens your senses. Cruelly so. You can hear things now that once escaped your notice. The crunch of frost beneath a stranger's boots. The faint creak of a cart wheel far in the distance. The breath of your child as she sleeps. Shallow, thin, like a candle flickering low. It's not just you. Everyone's ears are tuned this way now. A man was beaten last week for keeping a scrap of dried peas beneath his bed. His neighbor had heard him chewing in the dark. Trust is another casualty of the famine. The blacksmith's forge has gone cold. No one needs tools when there's no field work. His son wanders the lanes now, gaunt and gray, like a wraith with a hammer still tied to his belt, as if hoping someone, somewhere, might ask for a horseshoe or a blade. But the horses are mostly gone too. Some were eaten. Others simply died, not from the cold, but from the lack of fodder. A plow horse, once a farmer's pride, is now a story whispered with guilt and shame. The children speak less now. They play even less than that. In better times, they'd gather sticks and straw to make little dolls or tiny wagons. Now their games are muted. Strange, they dig in the earth for roots, scrape bark for lichen, pretend they're rich when they find a beetle or a feather. You wonder if they remember what laughter sounded like before it was replaced with coughs. You wonder if they will ever know anything else. The village bell hasn't rung in months. Not for mass, not for market day, not for weddings. Only the dull clang of iron on iron, usually to announce a death or a warning. Even time feels bent now. You try to count the days since it began. But which day was it? Was it when the rain didn't stop, when the fields drowned, when the flour ran out, or the first time you saw a mother cry while chewing something she'd sworn she didn't have? Your own memories are soft around the edges now, like old cloth. But some things you remember clearly. You remember how bread used to smell, warm, yeasty, thick and golden crusted. Not the dark, moldy clumps people trade now, real bread. You remember the sound of your own stomach, not growling. You remember not feeling afraid of going to sleep, in case you don't wake up. And still, you get up, you move, you breathe, because the world, despite everything, continues to turn, even when it feels like it shouldn't yet. Outside, the ground has turned against you. The soil that once fed entire households is now a clotted, uncooperative mess, thick with moisture, sour with rot. Crops that should have stood tall in the summer are now brown slumps of half-grown disappointment, roots split from too much water, leaves mottled black from the mildew. There's talk of blight, not the fire of disease that comes in a day, but the slow, creeping death that takes entire fields silently. The rye, the reliable rye, has failed again. The oats never stood a chance. Even the humble cabbage, savior of lean years, has yellowed into mush in the furrows. In the village square, the grain merchant's stall has been empty for weeks. The wooden scales sit abandoned, a mouse nesting where once he weighed gold against sacks of barley. No one has seen him. Some say he fled. Others whisper darker things. In desperation, the villagers have begun to turn inward, not just to prayer, but to darker reflections. Someone started drying nettles. Someone else boiled the bark off a yew tree. A man tried to roast mushrooms. The wrong kind. He died 2 days later. Black foam on his lips. You've become something of an amateur botanist, by necessity. You know now which weeds won't kill you. And even that knowledge isn't much comfort. Everything you eat tastes like wood. Everything you drink tastes like rain and smoke. And yet still, the hunger digs deeper. It hollows out your joints. Your knees creak. Your breath comes sharp. You drop things now. Spoons, knives, your patience, and sometimes you forget you ever held them at all. Worse are the nights. In the daylight, at least you can move. You can pretend there is purpose, that some new route will be found. Some stranger will appear with news of a relief cart, some miracle from the bishop or the crown. But at night, lying in your dark, damp corner of the cottage, wrapped in a cloak that's more patch than wool, the hunger becomes a second skin. You dream of feasts, not grand ones, just bowls of soup, roasted onions, a crusty heel of bread. Sometimes you dream of warm milk and honey. You wake with your mouth watering, only to find it dry and sticky. And the worst part? Used to it now. Used to the ache. Used to the smell. Used to the silence. Used to watching the old grow still, and the young grow silent. This is not a disaster with fire and fury. No walls fall. No swords clash. No dragons roar. It is slow. It is quiet. It is rain and rot, and no one is coming to save you. The cattle are dying. At first, it was just one or two. A cow found bloated and stiff, legs splayed as if she'd slipped on wet earth. Then more, then many. The soft churn of their hooves is gone from the pasture. The dull rhythm of the milk pail is no longer part of the morning. Milk was once a staple. Now it is a memory. You remember the first time you tried to drink what was left. Thin, chalky liquid with a strange odor. It soured fast. Your belly twisted the rest of the day. Butter, cheese, all of it is vanishing. Livestock suffer in their own quiet way. The hay stores are soaked through, turned to black sludge. There's nothing dry to chew, nothing to keep the bloat at bay. Their ribs begin to show. Their eyes glass over. You had a pig. You remember her well. She was clever. Too clever. She'd nudge the latch on the pen when you weren't looking. But now she's gone. Sold, traded, or butchered. Probably butchered. And not with celebration, but with hesitation. You used to slaughter a pig before winter. A proper butchering. A proper feast. A larder full of salted cuts. But not this time. This time it was quiet, shameful. Her blood pooled in the mud, and no one sang. Even the dogs grow thin now. The cats have gone feral. The chickens, what few remain, refuse to lay. They peck in corners, frustrated and twitchy. Nature is not kind, and people are becoming less so. You've noticed the way folks glance at each other during market days. what remains of them. The eyes are sharper, the smiles forced, the jokes have dried up. Suspicion replaces neighborly trust. No one talks about it openly, but you've heard it mentioned in passing. That someone dug up a fresh grave, that someone boiled bones not from livestock, but from the freshly buried. You want to believe it's just fear, just rumors, but fear and famine grow together like mold on bread. Once they're there, they don't stop. The bishop preaches about sin. The villagers murmur about witches. The elders blame the weather. But deep down, you all know. You know the harvest has failed. You know the roads are ruined. You know the king is far, far away, and his promises even farther. So you gather whatever's left, you eat what you must. You pray, if you still believe in prayer, and you wait for the rain to stop. But it doesn't instead, it has instead. And tomorrow, it will begin again. The bread is thinner now, not in size, but in substance. It crumbles in your hands like dirt, dark and gritty, speckled with bark and chaff, and anything else that could be ground fine enough to pass as flour. The baker's oven still smokes in the village square, but barely. Firewood is harder to find than food. Even the dead trees are soaked. What you once called bread would now be called a lie. A mixture of mashed peas, ground up acorns, weeds, and sometimes the sweepings of the mill floor, and if you're lucky, maybe a little rye, but not too much rye, because everyone's whispering about the cursed bread. You've seen what happens. The spasms, the screams, the limbs twisting like vines around themselves, lips foaming, fingers blackening, laughter turning into wailing. The priest says, it's demons. But you overheard the miller's wife mention something else. Ergot, a fungus that clings to rye, invisible until it's baked, until it's eaten, until it dances its madness into your blood, and once it's in you, there's no telling what part of you it will claim first, your mind or your body. Still, people eat it, because what choice is there? The famine isn't just hunger. It's bargaining, it's risk. Every bite could save you or ruin you, and not all suffering is equal. The lords still eat, they still hunt. You hear the dogs in the hills sometimes. They're baying like ghosts, echoing through the fog. The noblemen still ride in their cloaks, their horses fed on what would keep your entire household alive for a week. But if you take their deer, even just one, it's a noose. Poaching is theft. The forest is not yours. Even if you starve at its edge. There's a boy you knew. Tomlin, maybe. He used to chase frogs down by the creek. Always grinning. Always muddy. They found him in the woods, hanging from a tree. Not for killing a man, not for burning a house. Just a rabbit. A single, starving rabbit. That's Seps, what justice looks like now. The law exists, but it's no longer about order. It's about control. The king's writ holds no food. The sheriff's coin buys no grain, and the people know it. But they obey for now. You watch the sky as clouds churn endlessly, a gray that never clears. You feel the damp in your bones, in your shoes, in your roof. Every day is cold. Every day is wet. Every day is wet. Every day is harder than the last. And there still no end in sight. Yuzev started to dream of food. Not feasts. Not golden pies or roasted birds. No. Just bread. Real bread. Wheat bread. Something thick. Something white. Something that smells like warmth instead of mildew and ash. You dream of biting into it, and it sticks to your teeth like memory. Then you wake, and your stomach coils into itself like an angry animal. But worse than the hunger is the change. People are different now. Quieter, angrier. You notice it in the way they walk, shoulders hunched, as if even their spines can't bear the weight of this new world. They don't make eye contact as often. They don't laugh. The midwife, a kind old woman with a crooked nose and gentle hands, has stopped attending births. There's nothing left to feed them, she says softly, mostly to herself. You heard her the last time she passed your door. No one has spoken her name since, and the children, the ones who should be running, tumbling through the mud, they sit still now, hollow-eyed, clutching turnips like treasure. Most are thinner than the firewood stacked by your hearth. Some barely speak, some no longer cry. Cemeteries have grown full and quiet, but even the dead are not safe anymore. There are stories whispered behind hands, of shallow graves being disturbed, of bones found stripped, of meat missing, and worse. One night, under the fog-heavy moon, you hear a knock at your door, a soft one, hesitant. It's a woman from the edge of the village. You don't know her well, just her eyes, big, blue, desperate. In her arms, she holds something swaddled in rags. You think it's a child, but it doesn't move. Trade, she says. She opens the bundle. It's his meat. You don't hit ask, from where? And she doesn't say. You shut the door. You don't sleep. This isn't a bad season. This isn't a hard year. This is a collapse. An unraveling. The church says it's punishment. That the sins of men have poisoned the land. That the rain is heaven's tears. That fasting will save your soul. But the priest is thin too, and you saw him scrape mold from his bread before blessing it. Everyone is starving. Even the shepherds. Even the wolves. They're coming closer now. Down from the hills. You see their tracks in the muck behind the chicken coops. Though there are no chickens left, a goat disappeared last week, and you found its blood in the morning, not the body. People will start vanishing next. They already are. You used to mark the days by the church bell. A soft, solemn toll that reminded the village of mass, of weddings, of the hour of work, of rest, of birth, of death. Now the bell rarely rings, not because people have stopped dying, but because there are too many deaths for ceremony. The grave diggers are exhausted. They don't even dig anymore. Not really. Just shallow trenches, just enough to heap the bodies in and cover them loosely. One good rain, and the dirt shifts. One strong wind, and the smell seeps through. No one lingers at gravesides anymore. What is there to say that hasn't already been whispered into the dark? The famine has entered its second year. Crops rotted in the fields again. The sky, which once promised spring, now spits nothing but cold drizzle. The sun is a rumor, and hunger has made you efficient, brutal even. You can skin a rat faster than you used to. You know how to make broth from bones, even dry ones. You've started boiling grass. You have a trick for turning shoe leather soft enough to chew. It helps to scrape it first. The dirt, the laces, the memory of feet. You don't flinch at the smell anymore. But not everyone adapts. Some wander off into the woods and are never seen again. Others drink themselves to sleep and simply don't wake up. A few, in the night, with eyes wide and glinting like broken glass, have taken to knocking on neighbors' zift doors and asking for meat. Not food, meat. It's a word that sounds different now, harder, sharper. You have barricaded your door at night. You sleep with a stick beside your straw. The lord of the manor, the one with the seal ring and the tall red horse, is gone, fled, perhaps, or dead. No one knows. The manor is silent now. Its windows like dark eyes watching the village rot. Some say he hoarded grain before he left. Some say there's still food in the cellars, but no one dares break in. Not yet. There is still the memory of law, still the echo of consequences, but echoes fade. Soon, even those might vanish, because famine doesn't just devour the body, it eats the soul too. Slowly, silently, like a rot behind the walls. And each day you feel it burrowing a little deeper. Tomorrow maybe you'll finally be hungry enough to break your own rules. You want it to be the first. You want it to be the last. The forest was once a place of life. Now, it's a place of last resort. You find yourself walking there more often, not because you expect to find food, but because sometimes there are mushrooms, or berries, though it's too early in the season, or bark that you might scrape and chew, pretending it's bread. You've seen others digging at roots like wild boars, mud caked into their nails and eyes glassy with desperation. You are sure becoming one of them. You remember when foraging was a chore, reserved for lean weeks. Now it's your only hope for calories, and you sear not alone. The paths into the woods are worn, muddy from hundreds of feet. Whole families wander, eyes fixed downward, too weak to speak. You pass a woman you know, or at least, you think you do. It's hard to recognize faces anymore under the grime and sunken cheeks. She doesn't look up. She's picking leaves off a tree and chewing them. You don't ask if she's found anything. No one shares anymore. There are whispers of men who've taken to eating rats. Not traps. There are no traps. Just whatever can be caught by hand or clubbed with a stick. You haven't seen a rat in days. Even they're growing scarce. And then, there's the darker rumor, the one that no one says aloud in daylight, about what happened in the next village over, about the family with too many mouths and not enough bread, about the oldest daughter who suddenly vanished, about the pot that boiled all night. You tell yourself it's just a tale, but you notice how careful people have become around each other, how mothers clutch their children tighter, how strangers are no longer welcomed near the fire. Fear has a new flavor now. It's not just fear of hunger. It's fear of what hunger does, what it twists and carves and hollows out of a person. You find yourself thinking things you never would have a year ago, things that terrify you, but not as much as dying does, and not as much as watching someone you love fade into bone and silence while you stand by, powerless. So you pick through moss and leaves, you check under rocks, you hope for a frog, a snail, anything with substance, anything with heat. You wonder if people taste like pork, and then you hate yourself. But the hunger is louder than the hate, and that scares you most of all. It's not just the countryside that's suffering. Even the towns, once thought to be safer, are starting to fall apart. In a normal year, towns bustle with trade, color, voices calling out from market stalls. But now, the market is almost silent. A few vendors remain, but their carts are empty or piled with pitiful offerings. Dried weeds, sour milk, maybe a few blackened turnips hoarded from last year's spoiled stock. Prices are madness. A single loaf of bread costs what a chicken used to. A chicken costs what a cow once did. And a cow, well, if anyone still had one, they wouldn't be here. The baker's window, once warm with smells of yeast and rising crust, now stands shuttered. You can't remember the last time you saw a real loaf. Even the smell of baking bread would be a cruel sort of memory now. People trade in strange things. A ragged blanket for a handful of barley. A rusty spoon for a rat, dead or alive. A kiss, a promise, even shame. Nothing is off the table when desperation rules. You walk past a well. It's surrounded by thin figures, each holding a bucket or broken pot. Water is free. For now, but not for long, some say. Not if things keep going this way. The town guards used to keep order. Now they look thinner than the rest. They've stopped enforcing laws and started guarding food stores instead. You saw one yesterday beating a man for stealing a cabbage. A single, half-rotted cabbage. People watched, silently. No one stepped in. The man survived, barely. The cabbage didn't stut. There are no sermons anymore. The church bells don't ring. Even the priests have grown quiet. Once they promised rain and relief, now they mutter about punishment and sin, about God's anger, about how perhaps this is deserved. You want to scream at them. What sin did a baby commit? You saw one yesterday, swaddled in rags, lying still against its mother's chest. She didn't seem to notice that it wasn't moving anymore. She just sat there, staring at the church, eyes blank. Some say it's such not a famine, but a reckoning. But reckoning for what? You didn't cause the rains. You didn't flood the fields. You didn't rot the grain or drown the cattle. And yet, you suffer. All of you do. It's not fair. But fairness has fled this world like the sun behind the endless clouds. You stay away from the church. There's no comfort there now. Only echoes of sermons and hollow men in black robes who've run out of answers. You spend your days moving between hunger and hope. But hope is wearing thin. Everywhere you go, you hear rumors. Not the kind that entertain, the kind that unsettle. They say the grain in the east is untouched, that the storm didn't reach there. They say a cart is coming with supplies, a noble's charity wagon, that someone has found a way to dry the rot from the wet barley. You want to believe it, everyone does, but it never comes. Instead, you watch as people quietly begin to leave. First, it was strangers, travelers, day laborers, merchants, who could afford a horse. Then, people you knew, your neighbors, the family down the lane who had a goat, the widow with the yellow dog. They left in the night. No goodbyes. Just vanished. You wonder where they went. You wonder if they found something better, or if they didn't get far. One day, you come across something in the woods outside the village, a trail of flattened grass. Then, an empty cart. Flies buzz lazily in the damp air. You don't look closer, you don't need to. This is what the famine does. It turns roads into traps and forests into graves, but you have no choice but to keep walking. Maybe you're going to the next town. Maybe you're just looking for food, or maybe you're just trying not to die where everyone else has. But every step you take is slower than the last. Your legs tremble. You haven't had a real meal in 3 days. What you did eat, some moss boiled in muddy water, didn't stay down. Your stomach hurts, but not in the way it used to. It's a different kind of pain now, not sharp, just empty. There's a boy ahead of you. You know him. He's younger than you. Maybe 10. His name is Tom, or maybe Tomlin. He used to chase chickens in the village square. He sits carrying something. You catch up to him. He doesn't run. He just looks at you with dull eyes and lifts the sack. Inside is bark, strips of it, peeled from a tree and chewed raw. He doesn't speak. He just tears a piece off and hands it to you. You chew. It's bitter, stringy. Your teeth ache as you try to break it down, but it gives your mouth something to do. And for a few minutes, it tricks your body into thinking you're eating. This is what food looks like now. Bark, moss, weeds, anything to quiet the hunger. Even for a moment, you return to the village, or what's left of it. The thatched roofs sag with water. The mud paths have become swamps. The air smells of damp rot, mold, and something sour closer to decay than life. Children no longer play outside. You don't hear laughter anymore, not even from the drunk who used to sing off-key outside the alehouse. That building is shuttered now. No barley, no beer. Even the church is quieter. The priest has started burying the dead in mass graves. There's no time, no energy for ceremony. Just dig, cover, and pray. But prayers don't change the weather. They don't bring food. And they certainly don't bring back the cow you lost last week, the last of your livestock. You remember the day it happened. The rain had finally let up for an hour. You stepped outside, and the cow was just on its side, legs rigid. You poked it, nothing. Your brother helped you skin it. Neither of you are butchers, but hunger teaches fast. You boiled the meat, ate what you could. Salt was too precious to preserve it. The rest went bad within days. Now you survive on turnips. Or you did. They're gone too. You've started digging up roots from the edge of the forest, things you'd never eaten before. Some taste sharp, others leave your lips numb. You don't know which ones are poisonous. You just hope the nausea passes. Your skin has changed. You notice it when you pull up your sleeves. It's pale and thin, and there are bruises where there shouldn't be bruises. Cuts don't heal. Your gums bleed. Scurvy. You've heard the word. Some monk mentioned it, but words don't help. Not when the cure is oranges and citrus, and you've never even seen a lemon in your life. You don't even know what it looks like. The rains don't stop, but eventually, they change. In the second half of 1317, the skies start to lighten, the downpours become showers, and the clouds, for once, seem less angry. Crops planted late begin to sprout. Not well, but enough to promise a harvest next year. If nothing else goes wrong, the ground is still heavy with water. The rot hasn't disappeared, but the stench lessens. Slowly, day by day, children begin to venture outside again. Thin, quiet children, but alive. The village doesn't celebrate. There's no festival, no music, no grand gathering, just a kind of breath, collective, shallow, as if no one wants to believe it's truly over. And for many it isn't. Disease still lingers, bodies are still buried every few days. But there is bread, a little, and someone has found eggs. You hold one in your hand and stare at it like it's magic, smooth, warm, impossibly whole. You don't eat it. Not yet. You just sit with it for a moment. You survived, barely, not unchanged. Never the same. The Great Famine will never be forgotten, even if no one tells the tale with drama or glory. The memory lives on in soil and skin and silence. It lives in you now. As your eyes close, you feel the weight of that long hunger, the ache of a world where survival was never guaranteed. Sleep now. You are not in the 14th century anymore. The cold is gone. The straw mat beneath you has been replaced by something softer. The smell of rot and damp is gone, replaced by the familiar hum of modern life. You made it through the famine, and now, finally, you can rest. Thanks for staying with me through this quiet journey into the past. If you found it strangely soothing, do consider liking and subscribing. It helps me keep making these sleep-friendly histories. Sleep well. You've earned it.